Today it's a pleasure to have a close friend of mine, George Sotiropoulos here, the founder and CEO of Sophia. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Antonis. And you're one of the few who can actually pronounce my last name.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Well, considering you're Greek, I would hope so.
Yeah, that's probably the reason. So, yeah, it's great to have you here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I am Greek. Both parents are Greek, but I was born and raised in the States. So I lived in the States until actually up until I was about 35. And then I moved to London. And then from London, moved here to Dubai. So I've been in Dubai about 16 years. I did my schooling in the States. So I did my undergrad at UCLA, which has been in the news recently, and then I did my MBA from the University of Chicago, and then went to London, and then from London to Dubai.
All right, that's nice. So, how's that journey been?
That's been interesting. So when I was in the States, I I was, for example, when I finished school, when I did my MBA, actually, I went to work for E-Trade. So that was in the heart
All
of
right.
that was during the depth of the dot-com craze, and which was a crazy time because people just acting like the laws of economics didn't work anymore. So
Yeah.
I remember a coworker talking about how he was going to keep remortgaging his house so that he could take the money, put it into the stock market, gain on a week of gains in equities, then pay off the mortgage, then do it again, and so on and so forth. And I think he finally got caught at the end. I have no idea. I don't know what happened to him. But, it was crazy stuff. He was like, hey, this mortgage is only 8%, but I can make 20% in a week. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna mortgage the house and put it all in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that crashed. I stayed with E-Trader for a couple of years after that. Um, and then after that is when I had me and a friend, we started a business. We tried to start a business actually. It didn't
Yeah.
really go anywhere. It was a membership type of business, but we
Mm-hmm.
ran into the whole issue of networking.
All
That
right.
you need a big enough network for the business to be sustainable. But for the
Yeah.
business to be sustainable, you need to find a network. But how do you get people to join the network? Until you have a network. That kind of chicken and
Yeah.
the egg thing. Uh, we weren't able to crack that, but I did learn a lot. The biggest lesson there was that this was a prime example of us trying to be clever and come up with a
Right.
solution, but we never asked an audience whether they wanted it or not. And so that was just an uphill struggle from there. Um, yeah, then went to London. I was in finance. I was in the foreign
Mm-hmm.
exchange markets on the institutional side, and so I had started a Middle East trading desk when I was in London, and that is what brought me to Dubai because when I went for a trip to Bahrain,
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to see two gentlemen. They said, "Hey, look, we want you to do what you've done in London. We want you to do it out here in Dubai." So I went. Eventually, I helped these two guys start the business, and we created a multi-million-dollar business, including on this trading desk. The
Mm-hmm.
only problem was that someone else was the owner. When you
Yeah.
help create the business, but you're not the owner, it's not the same thing. Um, and then when I was finished with finance, I went into I was involved in an M&A project, and then from there I realized, okay, I want to get more on into the business strategy side. That's what I had done schooling in. That's what I had done on the side, even in the finance days. But I wanted to make it more explicit. And so where Sophia all
Yeah.
started with really with the idea of valuing a business, and then from there I realized it's much bigger than that. And
Mm.
ultimately it was, you know, if you're a business owner and you've put a lot of time and effort and worked a hell of a lot of hours to build a
Mm.
business, you're not entitled to be successful, but you do deserve to be successful. And that's why we made this business, was to help
Yeah.
you. best.
I see. That sounds good. So in terms of Sofiel, what's the selling point? What do you do, and what others get from your business, let's say?
The biggest thing they get is that, they'll get the clarity to know where they should invest the time and money, to make that business that they own, to
Yeah.
really give them the life that they dreamt about when they started the business in the first place. Because what happens is often the reality comes to play, and they find that it's not what they have. It's become a job. It's become a very
Yeah.
time-consuming job, and it's really not giving them, the ideal lifestyle. That was what they wanted. They wanted to be their own boss. They wanted to be able to have their own schedule, and instead, often they find themselves they can't even make it in time for dinner at home, let alone
Mm.
truly control the schedule. And on
True.
top of it, the sacrifices, they'll explain it in many ways to say, hey, listen, I'm working really hard, but I'm building something valuable. This is down to my children, or this is something that, one day, hey, we're going to sell this thing and we're going to have a lot of money, that's going to take care of everyone for the next generation, so on and so forth. This is my retirement plan so that we can relax after all this is done. But the
Yeah.
reality is that when they go to sell, 7 out of 10 of them are going to fail because the business itself has no value outside of the owner's control, right? And so as soon as the owner walks out the door, the
Yeah.
whole value of the business evaporates. That means any investor or buyer, they're not gonna touch this. They're savvy enough to know that they're walking into an asset that doesn't really have any real value. And that's what we do at Sophia. What we do at Sophia is we say, hey, listen, we're going to ensure, or, we're going to help you. We're not going to tell you how to run the business. You know how to run your business better than we do. But what we can do
100%.
is help you that, that will work with you actually, so that the business you are running is now not a job anymore. It's actually an asset, right? And when it's an asset
Yeah.
today, it means that you have full control of your time, right? It's also more profitable than when it's a job, than when it's a quote unquote a job. And also you have the options that many others don't. So that if you do decide to exit, you can do it on your terms, and it's not on
Yeah.
terms that are imposed upon you.
I see. That's nice. And I'm sure it's really useful for many business owners, because when we say business owners, we're thinking of a freedom lifestyle, if you want. But most of them, I see from my experience as well, they're really slaves to their business. So that's really useful for them to manage their time. In terms of the time, what has been the biggest game changer for your business in the past year?
You mean in the time I spend in the business, or the time in general?
That could be both. It depends. If you think that be the biggest game changer for your time outside your business helped you in the business as well, then that's probably it.
I would say two things.
All right.
Even as a solopreneur, there's a lot that you can do to systemize your business, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if when I onboard now a new client, I actually have a system that I follow, that I ensure that I follow that system. Now, I could do it off the top of my head. I know that, but I like to follow the system. So for example, I also have a system where, usually every week I'm writing about 4 to 5 emails and also LinkedIn posts.
All right.
Um, I have a system when I do that, how I do that, how long it should take, and so on and so forth. Um, and so the biggest thing is that the systems, not only do they help save you time, once you start following them, but they help ensure consistency and quality. That's the biggest thing. It's kind of like, you're an athlete, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, you can have one match where you're really, really good, and another match that you just suck, right? It just
Yeah.
happens. So what happens? It doesn't mean that the day you suck and the day you're good, it's what that is just the variability that comes with human beings, right? It's not like you woke up one day and forgot how to play goalkeeper, right? It's not like it's
Yeah,
just you might have a
true.
day where you just miss. That just happens, right?
Mm.
And but when you systemize things, you tend to take a lot of that variance away, and that's how you can get more consistent quality. That's why some of the most valuable companies out there, they when you dig down what makes them valuable, it's going to be their systems and processes. And it doesn't mean that they have to be so rigid that they have no independent thought, but that when you can systemize, it can make a huge difference. So that I think one thing was probably one major area. The second thing is, and I wrote about that. I'm actually writing about that this week, is how you
Mhm.
spend your time. Um,
Right.
you you spending your time with. That's really important.
Mm.
Um, if if you're spending your time with the wrong people, if you're spending your time in the wrong market, if you're spending your time with the wrong customers, you're going to struggle mightily. Um, if
True.
you have 10 clients, if you have clients and one of them is what I call a PIA client, a PIA, right? So it stands for pain in the you know what. Those
Yeah.
clients, the ones that take up 70% of your time but only give you 20% of the profits, fire
Mm.
them, right? Even if it affects your revenue for a month or so, or for weeks.
Yeah.
What happens is when you fire them and you take that time and you apply it to getting other ones or servicing your existing ones even better, you'll often find quickly, and I've seen this with some of my clients who have followed this advice, they tend to recover not only the money that they quote unquote were losing out by not having that PIA client anymore, but their
Mm-hmm.
profitability goes up and their
All
effort
right.
goes down because they're not spending all their time, coddling some difficult client that just, better to send them to your competitors and let your competitors deal with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are two things I'll say about time.
That's nice. So, what's the one question you get asked most often about your business in particular?
Um, so
Hmm.
what's your business? What does it do? Now
Okay.
this is a good question because it is a challenge. Now, um, I find it much easier to look at someone else's business and be able to identify relatively quickly what helps them stand out and what they should focus on and leverage on. But when it comes to your own business, it becomes very difficult, right? Because your own business, you know it so well, you understand the nuances instinctually, but it's very hard to communicate that. It's very hard to
Yeah.
communicate to where the listener really is. And often you might assume that they know more than they actually do, or you assume they're further along than they really are. And so you're either over their head, um, or you're talking in a way that just sounds like noise, so or or you are often what I find with many of my clients is they inadvertently they commoditize themselves, which has been probably one of my biggest surprises I've seen over the last couple of years,
All right.
is that they actually know that they do something different, but when I ask them on a scale of 1 to 100, where one is a commodity, selling sand in the desert, right? They'll score once. They'll say, well, my competitor does the same thing I do. Yeah, your competitor might quote unquote offer the same thing you do on a high level, but there's a way you do it. There's things there's values that you have that often encourages customers to stick with you and buy from you. And so you have to find
True.
out what those are and say, these are the things that help me differentiate myself from the others.
All
And
right.
so, yeah. And so, one of these guys, it was an exercise we did. It took us only about 5 to 10 minutes. It was a very fast exercise. But
Mm.
this client, he had been wasting so much money on general advertising, and he was getting people who kept clamoring to him for free information. He was a cybersecurity expert, and in a
Mm.
few minutes, just a few minutes, I just asked him one question. Okay, who are your best customers? And he said, well, my best customers tend to be doctors and lawyers. Okay,
Yeah.
So how come you're not targeting custom doctors and lawyers specifically? How come you're not niching down to those two segments, which are affluent segments that are not going to quibble about your monthly fees, and the stakes for them are so high? Because if they get hacked, they can not only lose a license, they can also be, you know, I think they can also be held for criminal whatever if it's really bad. So I
True.
said that's stop chasing the other people who are just wasting your time, and go for these two segments, because you have the testimonials already, because those were also his most satisfied customers. Like, just go with them, start there, and then, take that same money you're investing in this general advertising, trying to reach the whole world, put it into those two niches, and you're going to find it much more profitable, much easier, um, and your fundamentals will go up very, very quickly, and that's what's happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see. So based on that, with that being said, is there a mistake that you made early on and you learned a valuable lesson from, especially at the
Yeah.
start?
Oh yeah, big one. Biggest mistake oh gosh, it's many. Okay, here's two big ones I think your listeners can really, really apply.
Mm-hmm.
One is discover your audience before you discover your product. Okay.
Right.
Find the audience that you want to talk to. Find out what makes them click. What do they want? What's their core desires? Whatever the hell it is, right? Find that first, and then find the solution that they're looking for. Right? We often do the opposite. We build a solution, kind of like my story I told you about the first business we did. We build our solution, and then we try to find the audience who's going to buy it, and that's much difficult. It's so I'd say start with that. Okay. Then the second big lesson is you don't have to be a perfectionist. So
Yeah.
I spent months trying to redesign my website that I never ended up ever using, for whatever reason. But I didn't need to do that. In the beginning, my time and effort should be on, okay, put a website out there. Don't make it look stupid, but
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be sequential. As you're getting that out there, you can go out there and do other stuff. And so it's that perfectionism, trying to be perfect, that can really screw you up, because you start delaying, you never get out there, and time you can't recover, right? So 2 lessons: know your audience, start with an audience, and then the second one is just move, keep moving, and then things will take care of itself, but keep moving. Don't be a perfectionist, and don't be sequential. It doesn't always have to be A, then B, then C, then D. Sometimes you might do A, B, and C at the same time. A and C don't do anything, but B really takes off. Okay, we're going to pivot now, and we're going to follow B, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are
pivot.
2 big lessons.
This is something many mentioned in the past. Many experienced business owners mentioned that pivoting is basically the key in make something succeeding. So, all right, on to the bonus section now. I'll say one word or a phrase, and you have to reply the first thought that comes to your mind, one word if possible. Make sense?
Oh yeah, sure, good.
Let's see. First one is top sellable asset.
But business, right?
Yeah, can be.
The business, like business, like a valuable business. Yeah.
Business owner.
Oh man, lonely, lonely and hardworking.
Business and family.
Family first. I was listening to a podcast from an older podcast from a guy the other day, and he had rules of engagement on his website, and the first point he said to the client is, "My family is more important than you. I have time I set apart for my family that you don't get, and you have to accept that, or don't do business with me." Boom. Yeah, I love that. I thought that was,
Yeah.
you know, I thought that was really, really important. And that's another thing I also want to, I would say right now, with my business
Yeah.
is it's a quote unquote, okay, technically it's classified as a service business, but
All right.
I'm not here to be anyone's servant.
Mm,
Um, I'm here to partner with them.
mm,
So, so if they want, if, that is, a very important distinction to make because as a partner, you're in it together. As a servant, you're like a, you're just a whipping post. Yeah, we don't get me wrong, we do.
mm.
I do a great job, high quality, give the 100% commitment.
Yeah.
But if I have a, if I have a Friday dinner with my family, I have a Friday dinner with my family. I
Yeah.
really, that's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. That's not gonna be.
Mm,
I'm not gonna sacrifice my daughters for, because somebody's
mm.
having a meltdown.
Yeah. And then they have to accept it. Otherwise, then, as you said, don't do business with me. It's simple as that. Families
Yeah,
first. Exactly. What about trusted network?
trusted network. Um, yeah, well, you climb as high as the people who you surround yourself with,
Mm,
and so it's important to find good networks, good
mm,
networks. Try to be, and don't be the smartest in that network. You're better
mm.
off being one of the dumbest ones because that's how you're going to learn from everyone else.
Yeah, true.
Um, if so, um, so yeah, and I like networks where people don't try to sell to each other. Where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just I like where
Hell
they,
yeah.
and I'm in a couple of them, where
Mm,
I mean good ones, where they don't try to
mm,
sell to each other, where it's just about sharing insights and really trying to help each other
mm.
with their businesses, with their challenges, giving freely, not, it's not a quid pro quo, any of that stuff. And then what happens is the business then develops, right? The business is done
Yeah.
in those environments, but you're doing it then with people you know and trust.
Yeah, exactly. Trust is priceless, really. What about unique selling point?
I would say unique selling point, or also sometimes I there's a slightly different. It's a different term, not a different term. There's actually a different meaning. Also, there's something called unique mechanism.
All right.
Um, so the unique mechanism I kind of concentrated more on than on the unique selling point, even though they're both kind of important. Um, but it's really what it comes back to differentiation. It comes back to what makes you stand out,
Mm,
and how do you discover, create, and then communicate whatever your unique mechanism is, you know, which then often feeds into whatever your unique selling point is.
mm,
Um, so it's to me, it's the key to differentiation. And because when you're differentiated, you have the freedom to charge the value, you know, for what people think it's worth. And
mm-hmm.
and then also with the higher margins, you then have the freedom to invest more in your marketing and sales. You have more to invest in your customer service. You have more to invest in growing the business, so to say, right?
Mm.
Whereas if you're commoditized, you don't have that freedom. You're stuck at the lowest denominator, and often you find you have margins to do nothing. So no, it's really, really important.
All right. I see. That's nice. Top sellable asset, you said business.
Mm.
Why business?
I think because I talk about it all the time, um, because it's, you know when if you're a business owner, more often than not, your most valuable asset is your business. Now,
Yeah.
the question is, what value is there really into it?
Mm,
Because your business is also your riskiest asset and your most illiquid asset, and it's your most opaque asset, right? So it's,
mm,
but if you make it top sellable, which is funny because that's actually what we do. If you make it top sellable, then that means you're extracting the maximum value that you have within that business. You know,
mm.
um,
Yeah.
in fact, top sellable. That's what we used to use a lot a few months back. we used to talk about when we were talking to some, with our people who are looking to sell in the next 3 years. It's like, okay, how can we make this top sellable? How can we, so on and so forth. But that's why I thought about business right away, because that, in my mind, when we're looking at a top sellable asset, it's how do we make the business a top sellable business?
I see. Makes sense. Any last words or tips from George Sotiropoulos before we close the pod?
I know I would say just have fun with the process. It's stressful. It can definitely do your head in. So if you're ever going to start a business, don't do it lightly. Don't do it just because your boss pissed you off one day. You're like, okay, I'm just going to do a business. And sure as hell, don't do it because it looks easy, because it's not. This is a lot of corporates, when they go to try to start their own businesses, they find it very difficult because they've underestimated the level of support they had when they were part of the corporation. There was someone who was taking care of the garbage. There was someone who was taking care of the utilities. There was someone who was taking care of, XYZ. There was someone who was doing the inbound leads, and there was someone, and now they have to do that all themselves. And the time management's out the window. The lack of priorities is out the window. Then you're dealing cold calling. You're dealing with people who you thought would be your really good customers, but they're not, right? So I would say, to put that all together, have fun, don't underestimate, but keep learning, and reach out to others. Don't do it alone if you can help it. Reach out to other business owners, through different networking groups, different master groups and all that. Whether, there's so many out there, they differ. But yeah, don't do it alone. That's for sure. That's why with Sophia, what we did was the business started originally for people looking to sell their business in the next 3 to 5 years. It was sort of exit oriented. The market was asking a lot for more newer businesses, how to help them. And that's where the master roundtable came from, was to say, okay, you kind of have a newer business. You're not going to be facing these 50 things at once. Okay, come join us, in these meetings and all that. Learn from each other, and then you'll be able to save yourself so much money, so much time, not making the mistakes that many others already made, that they can teach you how not to make them.
Exactly.
I think that's the big takeaway.
All right, that's great. There's gonna be links in the description for any viewers to check it out. And that was amazing. That was George Sotiropoulos, ladies and gentlemen.